If you go see any type of doctor, specialist, whatever, they give you like a printed out paper. But arguably, in retrospect, you don't have any longitudinal analysis of, your blood work, when you saw the ortho, when you saw an ENT. None of that data is aggregated. Everyone's on their own different system, and it's not an efficient marketplace. And healthcare, while there's a lot of flaws, there's a lot of good things, but there's so many stakeholders, and the HIPAA privacy definitely introduces this barrier or obstacle to climb over. But it's been something resonated on my mind. And then when I went to this, I think it was for a COVID test, or I don't even know what it was, but waiting 45 minutes for that when it should have
Yeah, for a
been in
COVID
and out,
test. Yeah, exactly. I
it
remember.
really drove me crazy. And I got
Yeah.
home, I started writing, and I kid you not, I got this message from our founder who said, I like your background. This is what I'm building.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Après Venture Podcast. We have a very special guest today, and we're focused on, as everyone's aware from the previous episodes, focused on science, technology, medicine, and really everything in between. So we have, like I mentioned, a very special guest today, Marc Teitelbaum from the Prognostic Optimization Group, or POG AI. And welcome to the podcast, Marc. Really appreciate you joining.
Of course, Finith, it's great to be here, and I think you're doing a great thing. There's such a dynamic field within the healthcare space, and bringing new molecules to market, treating patients. It's constantly evolving. So, I love the space, and I love what you're doing.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's all from you know participants like you. It's if people weren't reaching out and people weren't saying yes, there'd be no, But I hope to think that in this area there's certainly I think a lot of people's stories that are not being as heard as well as they could be. So that's what we're trying to do here. But maybe we can start off a little bit on your background and how you got to where you are. Maybe start off from the beginning, maybe at school. How you got to doing. I have a pretty interesting story how I got into science. It certainly wasn't kind of circuitous route. It wasn't directly that hey, I knew I wanted to be a scientist when I started. Yeah, I always like to hear that kind of background to lay the land.
Absolutely. So I think it started, my mom was a neonatal nurse and would always kind of tell us stories about the night shift. I was really interested in that, facet of treatment. And then when I was in high school, I was an EMT, so I got firsthand exposure to responding to calls, seeing things, how the hospital was receiving patients. I went off to college at Lafayette where I played soccer. I thought I was going to go into medicine, be a doctor. I wound up shadowing probably 15 different doctors, surgeons, and 14 out of the 15 said, don't go into this field. Hospitals are acquiring private practices. There's value-based healthcare. Essentially saying if I was in your place, I would not go into this. So I'm at my senior year, kind of stressing because this is what I've been planning for the whole time. And I rolled in a capstone class that was on biotechnology, and I had a very niche project on it's a disease called human African trypanosomiasis, and it's called the sleeping sickness. And essentially, there's been no drugs or any type of efforts to resolve this in the past 30 plus years. And my project was really to look into that, understand the landscape, why it wasn't being funded. And that kind of opened my eyes to drug development, life sciences, and just biotechnology in general. So once I finished my degree, I did research at Mount Sinai where I studied Pfizer's breast cancer drug and really got my first foray into research and clinical sciences. And while I was there, I got accepted to Georgetown for a master's program. And this really focused on entrepreneurship, understanding business, IP, just a crash course in how to run a company. And I had a great mentor there, Jack Chirjikian. He was the founder of the program at Georgetown. And once I wrapped up there, I went into management and strategy consulting, working with all large pharma, small biotechs, doing every type of project you can imagine. Quite interesting, but what I realized was I didn't understand the science enough. So I took a step back, enrolled in my PhD, where I studied regenerative medicine and orthopedics. And while I was in my PhD, I got to work two great jobs. One was at a corporate finance firm where we worked pre-seed up to Series D companies, helping form these syndicates of fundraising, aggregating different funds, and then providing corporate advisory on the back end. And that gave me my first real management of entrepreneurship and really working with these companies that you don't know what kind of problems you're going to encounter as
Sure.
a startup
Every
every
day's a
single
new day,
day.
right? Right.
Exactly. And you're wearing tons of different hats. One day you're dealing with the patent crisis, the next day it's clinical. I worked there for about 2 years and I left and worked at an investment and company creation firm. And this was really a great opportunity because I got more operational experience. We would self-fund these companies that were off patent, run a proof of concept study, and spin out a company around them. So the first one that I really got to help co-found and then run was a traumatic brain injury drug that helped with the aquaporin channels and essentially mitigated the cytotoxic or secondary edema that happens in TBI and causes a lot of the effects of what patients experience. And that was great because I wrote the clinical protocols, I formed the scientific advisory board, I was going to conferences to see where that landscape was going, and really act as a, acting CEO or liaison to run this trial. And that was great. I loved it. Like I said, there's a lot of hats and you learn a lot on the job.
Sure.
And after that, the company unfortunately shuttered, but I was sitting at the doctor's office like many people, my appointment's at a specific time, 4 o'clock. I was still in the waiting room at 4:30, and I'm thinking there has to be some way to streamline or enhance the experience. There's no way that this is fiscally responsible and efficient to have people waiting 30 minutes, the backlog of people. So after I got home that day, the founder of the company, Jason, reached out to me kind of serendipitously about a triage platform that he was kind of working to build and wanted to bring me on. So I came on as a co-founder, employed to for Prognostic Optimization Group. And essentially what we do is we triage these patients, enhance the patient intake, documentation, and streamlining the reporting. So how it works is a patient essentially would go to our platform, they'd interact with a chatbot that asks all the necessary questions that a telemedicine provider or your physician would ask. What's your symptoms? What's your past history? Any medications? Kind of getting the whole comprehensive picture. And then it summarized that into a comprehensive SOAP note that gets sent to the doctor so that prior to your visit, they already have everything are going on. And 3 out of 4 patients that see doctors actually leave feeling that it wasn't a efficient use of time. They didn't ask the questions. They didn't get really what they wanted out of it and feel that the experience was bad. So we kind of worked on that and built our platform to focus on, the physician getting the whole picture and the patient having a more enjoyable experience. We want to reduce those wait times. And then also on the physician side, almost 70% of physicians experience burnout. I know COVID was a huge issue with, losing a lot of physicians, kind of taking a step away. And we wanted to find a way that we can essentially optimize their time. And we've worked with 2 primary care physicians so far. We're averaging about 6 to 15 minute increase in time to really accelerate with the patient so that these physicians can spend more time essentially talking to them, understanding what's going on, and figuring out the most efficient course forward for prognosis.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, maybe before we get into your company, we can take a step back for just 1 second. And I don't know, let's just say you went back to grad school after working in the field. That's pretty interesting to go into. I don't know many people
Yeah,
that go and get a corporate paycheck or whatever, and then they go back to. That's
it
very
was.
cool. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough decision because I had a nice cushy job. I was working with great companies. I had very smart colleagues, and it was overall an unbelievable experience. But every company we worked with, all of the senior leaders had, higher pedigrees of graduate schools, and I didn't really understand kind of how to take that science molecule to make a drug. And I figured how I looked at it is, 5, 10, 20 year outlook. Will I regret this in 5 years? maybe because, PhD work's tough. You're in a
Sure.
lab, you're kind of isolated.
That's
I
an
like to,
understatement.
t
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I like to talk to people. I like
Yeah.
to kind of work through problems, find solutions. But my 20-year outlook was I don't see this, being a disadvantage. Just helps me long term. They do pay for your school, which is, one of the benefits and kind of, one reason I looked at it. And, I get valuable skills of project management, doing studies, kind of really troubleshooting experiments, understanding literature. But, to go back, it was interesting because my first year, I was talking to a lot of the senior PhD students, and they're all trying to go into consulting, looking at me like I'm crazy from leaving a job like that to go to school where they just went to school to essentially do what I did. And, what I thought was it's a valuable experience and you get a lot out of it, but, it wasn't for me, so to speak. And I think in one way, it gave me a lot of the skills of project management and things that other PhD students didn't have. So I thought I was an advantage there, albeit I probably was an advantage for the research skills and what the past experience other students had. But, I know how to really talk to people, how to find, operationally what's the most efficient way forward and, planning out experiments. As you know, there's if you have a lag in anything, it's just a ripple effect downstream. And, if you don't run an experiment on day two, that could push things off for 2 months down the line. And I saw that, a few times early on and kind of planned ahead for that. But, it at the same time, my first few years, I was definitely, down the dumps and thought that, you know, maybe I should go back to consulting. This isn't for me. But, as you get through it and start to see some results and actually some positive feedback, what most people work on, you kind of realize that you can do this. Anyone can kind of do this as long as you, commit the time, reading and understanding what it is you need to do.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, very valuable perspective. I think there's a lot of so kind of getting into that, you mentioned the multiple hats that you learned in consulting. Has that been I think most people do it the other way. They like go deep in grad school and then they go into consult, or at least the consultants I know, they went into grad school and then they go out and then they go into multiple hats. Was there some then they learn, consulting, which is a lot of different skills that you work with a lot of different companies, of course. But was there some, kind of a takeaway from that is applicable to your current role in building the company?
Absolutely. I mean, there's this old saying, consulting, you hire a consultant to tell you what time it is. But, I think the skills are very transferable. I mean, making a pitch deck, doing modeling on Excel, you do that in any job description, any startup, and that's valuable for us because depending on what market we want to go into, we initially focused on primary care, but you want to size that up, see kind of what the outlook is, and then, the pitch deck is a key thing. I mean, every VC I've talked to, they say they get anywhere from 20 to 100 pitch decks a day. They spend about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And you really need to craft something that's one, aesthetically pleasing, but also gets or conveys the message and the drive home takeaway from what your company's doing. So I think that was really key in understanding. And then I think, working in teams that vary. With consultants, you're staffed on a project, the team leader changes quite often, the other associates or senior people vary, so you have to really work in a team and harness or enhance that communication aspect of it, especially if they're in different offices, so that you're passing off your current draft of the slide deck, or you went to a conference and had to build out what are the key takeaways and how's the regulatory landscape shifting in Canada or the EU. Really being able to digest a bunch of information, distill it into a very concrete recommendation or, next steps is valuable in any area, any industry. And that was extremely valuable to learn. I felt like a lot of what I was doing was slide deck creation, but that being said, all different disease indication type of projects. So I really got exposure to, the preclinical strategy and competitive analysis out to working with payers and understanding how a drug gets covered, what's the formulary P&T committee look like, how would patient flow mapping kind of work? I mean, I probably worked 100 different projects in my time there. My favorite project though was we were working on an early stage Alzheimer's drug and mapped out the entire patient journey of an Alzheimer's patient from, 50 where they're asymptomatic but might have the initial pathogenesis out to, late stage when they're in a nursing home to really find the idea. And we sifted through millions of claims data to kind of understand
Wow,
this and
interesting.
build this. And it was really valuable to see, when that drop off is, if there's, a broken hip or, delusion or any other type of symptoms that you can kind of integrate there. And then we built out, these are your ideal, patient populations that you should be targeting. And I thought it was valuable. Data is money, and we are in this, global mass data current state of economy, and especially with AI,
Data
which is
ocean.
streamlining that. Exactly, it is a data
Yeah.
ocean, and there's that great advertisement with Matthew McConaughey
Hmm.
for Salesforce where he says, if data is the new gold mine, what's the picks, or I forget, I kind of paraphrased that, but there's so much you can tell and extract from data, and I think that really being able to look at it very holistically and then iron out or distill what are the key takeaways is what make or breaks a company or a person or a candidate in being successful and finding that real value add to the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. That was a great overview. Maybe now getting a little bit into. I know you touched on it briefly, but getting a little bit into the founding of your current company and how that all came together. I know we talked about it a little bit, but I thought usually there's a good story there where if you drill down a little bit, you get a great idea of the kind of the foundations of the company and how it's planning on you're not planning on growing, but just for where it is currently and how and the growth trajectory kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm not a hypochondriac, but every time I have pain in the side or something,
Hmm.
I always think, what's going on? And if you go see any type of doctor, specialist, whatever, they give you like a printed out paper, but arguably in retrospect, you don't have any longitudinal analysis of, your blood work, when you saw the ortho, when you saw an ENT. None of that data is aggregated. Everyone's on their own different system, and it's not an efficient marketplace. And healthcare, while there's a lot of flaws, there's a lot of good things, but there's so many stakeholders, and the HIPAA privacy definitely introduces this barrier or obstacle to climb over. But it's been something resonated on my mind. And then when I went to this, I think it was for a COVID test, or I don't even know what it was, but waiting 45 minutes for that when it should
Yeah,
have
for a
been in
COVID
and
test.
out,
Yeah, exactly. I
it
remember.
really drove me crazy. And I got
Yeah.
home, I started writing, and I kid you not, I got this message from our founder who said, I like your background, this is what I'm building. And it was definitely in line there, synergy with what I was thinking about. And so we started talking, sharing ideas where this could go. And I really loved his energy, kind of AI is exploding, which is a positive or a negative. It's a saturated market. Everyone hears AI and they kind of, turn the cheek saying, is this actually AI? Is this going to provide any value, benefit to my day to day? But I thought that it would be a way to really aggregate and make the patient the quarterback. And when you're younger, you have a primary care pediatrician, they are fantastic and they don't get enough credit. I wish more people would go into this as an underrepresented specialty. But a pediatrician was, calling other doctors, sending me, making sure that I was, managing everything. And then once you kind of get off, I think it's 26 when you get kicked off your parents' insurance and you have to kind of manage things on your own, making your own appointments,
Hmm.
you're kind of lost at how to go about this. What is the best way to manage my health? And there's this huge, Medicine 3.0. I don't know if you've read Outlive by Peter Attia, but he's, got really,
It's
taken
called
control
Outlive.
of, Yeah, Outlive. It's a great book.
Actually, yeah.
He was on 60 Minutes a few weeks ago, but it's really about like managing everything so that later on in life, how do you want to live? Carrying groceries, hanging out with your grandkids, making sure you're healthy. And, chronic diseases, I think it's 90% of the US is pre-diabetic.
Hmm.
And, you know, there's a lot of
Yeah, I just
chronic
read.
illnesses.
Yeah, I just read
Sorry,
something
go
the other
ahead.
day too. They said the GLP-1s are like the first longevity kind of drugs, or maybe I saw something on LinkedIn or something, because it's they'll lower your body mass index, which is correlated with how long you'll live. So hey, there are actually drugs out there that are trying to get at these underlying chronic conditions, and it's the underlying chronic conditions that cause a lot of the premature, say, aging and premature death kind of thing. So I don't know if
Exactly.
is that's kind of along the same lines, I would think. Is that right? For
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I mean, there's so many issues. So, taking a step back, I was managing my own healthcare as every, adult 26 and older
Hmm.
does. And, I'd get a printout from the ENT and that would go straight to the trash. And I forget what it was, and they're on a different software. So I essentially wanted to take that and make the patient have all their information and building a way where health isn't a pain to deal with. It's so how we built this out, he had a very working prototype, and then we hired on a chief medical officer, a CTO. We've brought on a few other people and really grown this company. We're in the seed fundraising stage, which we can get into later. That's a beast of its own. But I really thought that one, this provides value for all stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystem. I mean, patients get all their records, they can upload blood work so that they can follow it along, see if their cholesterol changes or their creatinine is lower this year and what that correlates to. And then aggregating all this so that you have a whole snapshot, almost like making it Spotify Wrapped. This is your health in a year. And I think really building on one, the patient and making them have a better experience. Nobody likes going to the hospital. Nobody likes going to the doctor. So how can we enhance this? Reduce wait times. Doctors are getting a whole picture so that you're going in and not, you know, forgetting questions or feeling like you were rushed in and out of there so that they could see the next patient and really building on that. And then there's a lot of different avenues that we're looking to go once we do secure funding. But I think health is the number two contributor to GDP. It's a huge issue. It's a moral dilemma because of it's people's health. So you want to make sure that it's cost effective, but we also need to stimulate the innovative, drug development, the coverage, and making sure that we enhance the whole healthcare operation system. And, taking on this and working with the patient, working with the physician, and then ultimately we'd love to get the providers, the health networks, the payers, and really making a one-stop shop of where a patient can see their health records, they can manage their medications, they can partner with clinical trials for adherence because clinical trials, one of the hardest things about really getting a study off the ground is one, recruitment, getting, the key patients that fit the inclusion criteria, and then ultimately compliance with this. So how can you enhance that? You give patients more remote monitoring, more comfortable systems, nudges to, take the medication or do whatever is, the key primary outcome to understand. And we think that we can, tackle a lot of these areas and enhance all aspects virtually of healthcare.
Sure, absolutely. Take thinking it a step further. Who would be the customer? Who are you envisioning as the primary customer? There's really not a primary customer then. Is it really just affecting the entire? It's not just, but it's affecting the entire ecosystem. Then is that the point? And then everything is
Yeah,
kind of added to a central repository where patients can have access to their own data. Physicians can get a very good understanding of what's going on during an appointment and that kind of thing. Is that the kind of idea?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I think we got to
Yeah.
walk before we can run, and we
Sure.
kind of approach this as a chicken or the egg, which do we focus on the patients or do we focus on the physician side?
Hmm.
And physicians are very hesitant to use a new software service or sign on something unless it's making their life significantly better or, you have the stamp of approval by all these hospitals and VC funds. They're a little, weary of the product. So we initially launched with piloting with primary care physicians because we felt that, cast a wide net with different symptoms or types of patients. We weren't in this niche market where we, are seeing one type of patient, can't really understand where does this work? Is there a specific subpopulation or demographic or type of symptom that, really offers value to the patient? So we did that. We kind of understood where are some of the pain points or things we need to work on, features to include, and we've gotten patients, we've gotten some good feedback, but really now it's scaling up and getting the patients that want to use this and see the value, and how do we convey that message to them most effectively, where, you know, like you go to Amazon to check out, oh, I'm gonna buy this today. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go to POG and look at, how my health looks for the year, and
Sure.
do I
I
need
was
to
I would
go see
think
a doctor?
Yeah, I would think like older Americans as well would be a huge, like maybe Medicare patients or something, because I know like everybody I know that's older, they seem to go to many, many more, appointments, and definitely have trouble keeping track of everything. I know from just my own parents, they have doctor's appointment a week or something like this, that I don't know how you keep track of it. If there was one kind of repository there that they could go to, I'm sure they would be, I don't want to speak for them, but
Yeah,
I know their troubles and I hear about it. So, I think that could be a hugely valuable, even when you have things like, I know there are different physicians have different, computer systems and everything like that. But if there's some way for them to like put it into a central place, I'm sure they would, jump, because they spend a lot of time and effort doing this,
yeah, and
and they care about
and I
their health,
think
and they want to be as healthy as humanly possible to live the longest, as long as they can.
Absolutely, and I kind of have 2 points on that. First is with the older patients, it's a double-edged sword. They're definitely seeing more physicians. It would benefit them more to aggregate everything. But then you got to think about the tech aspect of it. Are they willing to adopt this and use it? Are they going to have a fully fledged conversation with the chatbot to get all their symptoms and house all their data? Or
Oh,
are they
interesting.
going to be skeptical of using it? So, we found that our sweet spot is, the upper age adolescents, 18, and then upwards of 50, 60, 70s, we feel like it's a drop off. But
Okay, makes sense.
in response to your comment about housing everything, I have a family story. So my grandmother, amazing woman, the funniest person ever. She unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but my mom was going back through her health records to make sure everything was, integrated and kind of taken care of so that there was no outstanding issues. And, you know, she couldn't get anything because different physicians had different records, different systems. She also was a woman that told everyone she was 39 forever, so she changed her birthday with different physicians. So my mom getting everything was really difficult. And, how much this would benefit someone like that, where all of my grandma's health records would be in one place, that it could have been managed way easier. I think that would have benefited everyone in general. And to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's giving you a portal to discuss whatever you need. I mean, if you ever have any issues, you go to WebMD, it essentially says you have cancer, brain tumor, you're dying, whatever. So we want to give some more realistic or temper those expectations, and, make sure that we can manage the patient's expectations while also getting them the best care and management of that care, whatever the condition could be.
Very interesting. Yeah, thanks for that overview. I think this gives a great idea on exactly what you're looking for. So kind of on that note, what are your next kind of goals, and what are you looking to accomplish, and they kind of maybe were some of the challenges or something that are the next steps there for your firm.
Yeah, so I think, and every founder startup will face this. They say the hardest thing is starting a company, the second hardest is fundraising. And, it's a beast of its own. Like I said, VCs, investors spend 90 seconds on a deck. So how do you really get the message across to them to see the value in this company? So the key thing for us, I think, is fundraising. We're currently doing our seed round up to $1.5 million. And what that really does is that gets us one integration into these Epic Athenas, which are very close, you know, box and tougher to get into,
Or
very
interesting.
cost.
So you'd integrate with Epic and Athena, and
Yeah,
then be able
to
to super cool. I understand
yeah,
now. Yeah.
and you know, doctors don't want to do anything that's going to add to their time management. So, you know, I spoke to one renowned orthopedic surgeon who we might not be targeting that specialty at this moment, but he said if it adds 1 minute to do this for each patient. That's almost an hour a day that I have to do this. So if the report gets automatically integrated into Epic or Athena with the CPT codes or diagnosis codes for coverage and reimbursement, that would make their life easier. They don't have to type anything out. They have the patient's name, date of birth, everything, you know, in there, and they can edit it essentially how they see fit or if there's something they disagree. But then it provides also the transcript with the patient and the chatbot so that if there's anything that they want to go back and look, they can get a more, uh, you know, clearer picture, so to speak. But integration is one. I think marketing is going to be huge. Getting those patients to understand the value and sign on and really use this again because, you know, a one use time is not really going to benefit the patient. This is more of, you know, longitudinal and, you know, managing their health over the course of their life and improving that outlook. And I think one thing is getting into the partnerships and whether it's the health networks, whether it's you know, clinical trial companies or more physicians on board and really scaling it up. We've built this great platform with friends and family money and submitted our patents. We built out the UI. The whole portal looks great, and now it's really about, you know, what other features are needed with different specialties, and we're kind of approaching this as, you know, tailor or customized portals for each physician. So we spoke to a physician this morning who would like a, you know, customized platform for ADHD, ADD patients. And what that looks like is really one, building out the protocols and verifying them so that you know, it's capturing all the relevant data and key, you know, outputs for them. And then ultimately how does an ADHD patient manage their health? How are they looking at their records? What other things are we not thinking about that we need to include on our portal that would benefit these patients?
Hmm.
And really scaling it up so that, you know, any patient can kind of come in here and play in the sandbox in a way.
Very cool. Very interesting. Yeah. So to wrap up here, who are the individuals that you're most interested in connecting with? Say there's a listener that, you know, has a specific background. Who is the, you know, kind of ideal kind of connection that you know, we can make for you and in your firm here, if
I
there were?
think someone who is really passionate or excited about AI, there's no arguing that, you know, it is playing a role in our lives today and for the future. And then who wants to really change the patient's outlook, the physician's outlook. Ideally, it's a pre-seed seed investor who's willing to take a bet on a company who has a fully functional platform, who's had pilots with different physicians. We have patients signed on board, but willing to, you know, get in the ring with us and, you know, see this through where, you know, ultimately I think it could go. And it's it's got a lot of value proposition. It's got a lot of potential, and just, you know, really getting the funds to get it there is the next key hurdle that we need to face.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're at time, but thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate you you joining, and it was great to hear your story.
Yeah, Finith, this was awesome. I really appreciate the opportunity and I love what you're doing. I'm looking forward to listening to more interviews of your other guests.
Thank you.
No problem.